Layoffs. Unfinished games, cancelled releases, microtransactions, remakes, remasters, strikes, greedy corporations, bad game quality.
Gaming has a serious problem.
Why can we not have nice lives?
The gaming industry is in trouble, in decline, it'll destroy itself. Game over for the industry. Let's pause the game for a moment.
Every year, without fail, dim-witted cretins produce a litany of videos. Gaming is dying.
Yeah, I agree. So many YouTubers are shouting, game over for the industry. It's not as black and white and as grim as the clickbait suggests. Working in the gaming industry and at a pretty cool game dev company myself, I can tell you that these rather one-sided headlines are making you depressed for nothing. Most people have this mindset where they easily gravitate towards negativity. So I want to shed some positive light onto the gaming industry. Because I really started to ask myself, are those pain points really symptoms of an industry dying? Or might there just be growing pains? So the gaming industry is not dead or dying or destroying itself. It's actually leveling up. So as an ex-product manager and still working with developers today, I've been up close to those challenges. Releasing unfinished software? Been there, done that. Feeling the reverberations of layoffs? Hell yeah, been there, done that. Witnessing gaming giants scoop up indie gems? Been there, done that. I also remember when, back in the good old days, games were just one and done releases, off the shelf, glitches were expected and accepted. But times have changed. With software as a service, you don't own but rent software. And with it, the way we used to develop games changed as well. From traditional, very polished game launches, we shifted away towards a more flexible, agile release model, refining things post-launch based on player feedback. Fast forward to today and we see early access, remasters, remakes, and big corporations being on a shopping spree and high budget releases that sometimes miss the mark. I get the frustrations, and that's why it's so tempting to cherry pick the flaws and predict a gaming apocalypse. But it's far from being apocalyptic. Time to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. In the 70s and 80s, arcades were the first consumer-facing platform to introduce video games. They were coin-operated machines where players inserted coins in exchange for time in-game. By the way, this was the precursor to modern microtransactions. All leading Pac-Man to over $3.5 billion in revenue and Space Invaders to over $2.7 billion in revenue. And then the 80s saw some home consoles like Nintendo and Atari coming along, leading to the boxed revenue model, which meant people made single purchases of physical copies. And then the digital transformation kicks in. Physical copies out, digital storefronts in. Big names created their own online platforms, pushing the digital revenue and distribution model. And thanks to this digital shift, microtransactions returned, with DLCs, loot boxes, and mobile gaming introducing the free-to-play and pay-to-win business model. And with streaming services, the gaming industry adopted the subscription revenue model with the likes of PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass. Lastly, games as a service model comes along, with forever games backed by microtransactions, all pointing to a cloud-based subscription model. And with every transition from one business model to another, there was always a chorus in the background singing the good old doom and gloom song. Arcade operators bashed the box revenue model. Traditional retailers bash the digital distribution model. What if servers go down? What's gonna happen to unboxing games? And as cloud gaming gains traction, digital storefront traditionalists cry, okay, but what about latency or data usage? You see, some things never change. But one thing is always changing, and that's the industry. So before you hit the next clickbait video declaring the end of gaming as we know it, take a step back, breathe, zoom out, and remember that industries are constantly in flux. It's not about a descent into chaos, but about transformation. And judging by the Lindy effect, the idea that the longer something has been around, the longer it'll stay around, the gaming industry is a resilient animal. Even with shifts in development models and game quality or rise of subscription services, the industry gets some serious staying power with highs and lows. And with every low, we discover new ways to play that we never considered before. Take the Battle Royale genre, for instance. A few years ago, who would have thought that 100 players jumping out of a plane or a bus fighting to be the last one standing would be such a hit? Well, the critics didn't think so. Critics labeled it as just a fad or a bad change from conventional gaming. But titles like Fortnite, Apex Legends, Warzone all stand testament for how this reshaped the entire gaming culture. All this was not a drift away. AAA, but an exploration of new uncharted territory. Anyways, it seems that some uncharted territory for some are stock values, as some like to use these stock values as a metric for the state of an industry.
EA's past year in share value. It's kind of wacky and it drops a lot and it rises, but it definitely doesn't show consistent growth like investors would want. Here's Take-Two, and here's Ubisoft. It's just going down. And then here is Activision.
Roblox stocks are tumbling, Unity is taking a nosedive, Tencent could do better. But on the flip side, Nintendo's doing quite alright. Sony's stock is climbing. EA seems to be doing just fine, of course. Take-Two Interactive is rising. So even though some companies are experiencing dips, their stock value does not reflect the health of an entire industry, especially when other companies are having success. Reception of game releases, management decisions, global economic events, wars, pandemics, interesting retirements, all influence a company's stock value. But using that as a metric to gauge the industry's state, that's a no-go. A yes-go would be, again, to zoom out and see that the global data is telling an entire different story. From 2018 to 2026, gaming revenue jumped from $120 billion to a projected $500 billion. 2023 alone promises to make $333 billion US. Growth is widespread. Cloud gaming is expanding and so is VR gaming. Downloads and mobile games are surging. This doesn't shout decline, it shouts that we, the consumers, are behind these booming numbers. So with such booming numbers, why are there layoffs, you ask?
They're doing a bunch of layoffs.
Has just laid off a significant number of its workforce.
Yeah, layoffs. Well, let's look at a very recent example, Epic Games.
When you even try to rationalize it, it just sounds made up. It's like almost $40 billion valuation.
High valuation does not equate to, hey, we've got money to spend. That's just flawed information. Just because a firm is valued at $40 billion or something like that doesn't mean that that company has 40 billion sitting around on the bank account and is immune to layoffs.
Their profits increase, their margins increase.
Same with profit margins. Even if profit margins are increasing, it doesn't mean that total absolute profit is. If a company earns more per item but sells fewer items, they can still earn less overall.
Tencent, which is one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, Tencent. Even though Tencent is a big stakeholder in Epic, it doesn't mean that they are micromanaging operational decisions like hiring or layoffs. In fact, layoffs across the gaming industry had more to do with a popping pandemic bubble and overambitious acquisitions. Overambitious because companies were banking on a growing market. But the bubble popped and reality hit, and it hit really hard. Consumer behaviors shifted, and so did the focus of many companies. So layoffs alone do not indicate an industry-wide problem, but rather course correction, recalibration, and adaptation. I mean, gaming is a consumer-driven industry. We dictate with our wallets and our preferences what companies need to adapt to. And because of constant adaptation, especially AAA game dev companies need to play it safe. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So, let's talk about remasters, remakes, and risks. Call of Duty, 300 million. Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, 90 million. GTA 5, 265 million. GTA 6, a rumored 1 billion of development costs. We all know that AAA game dev budgets are soaring due to several reasons. From marketing spends to hiring specialists to marketing needs and constantly changing consumer behaviors and players' expectations. Every decade, the cost of producing a game has been observed to increase by tenfold. And when development costs go upwards, so do the financial risks. And no dev wants to make such a hefty investment without some assurance of success. So companies play it safe by riding the nostalgia wave, aka remasters and remakes, because they usually guarantee success because of already established fandom. Hence the 90s surge in shows like Stranger Things and games like Final Fantasy VII Remake. But all of that has a dual advantage. It makes us older gamers happy, and it also helps preserve older games. As hardware and graphics constantly evolve, most of the older games become simply unplayable, unless you get yourself a nice emulator from China. I love the uptick in remakes and remasters because I get to play an enhanced version of my favorite old classic game, and game studios get to cover development costs quicker by pushing out remasters and remakes. Many complaining about the surge of remasters and remakes. I see the positive side of it and understand that it doesn't signal the decline of an industry or the industry being in a really bad state or the lack of innovation. I mean, The innovation part is coming from the indie game scene anyways. But with standout titles like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Dead Space Remake, Metroid Prime Remastered, Persona 4, Silent Hill 2, it's evident that while studios are reimagining classics, the quality remains top tier, with Gothic Remake hopefully following suit. And Resident Evil 4? It's a remake that stands as the highest rated games of this year. And even one of the lowest rated games upon launch is making a great comeback, Cyberpunk. Oops, did I just mention an unfinished game? Well, let's talk unfinished games then. Or shall I call them live service games? In any case, neither is a symptom of an industry in decline. Terms like early access, beta, unfinished games, live service games, games as a service, all get mixed up. Though some studios might misuse early access or live service to release half-baked products, the core idea is promising. Games aren't static anymore. Instead, they are dynamic, evolving with input from both developers and the community. Problem arises when that model is used more for revenue than player experience. So in principle, it's all really a good concept. When you buy, you're not buying the game as it is on day one. You're investing in it, its roadmap and the future content. Value compounds over time. And with you investing in it, developers fund future developments based on player feedback. Sure, you can choose to wait for a polished version, but you'd be skipping the chance to shape the game's evolution firsthand. It's your call. Okay, now what about Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, Assassin's Creed Unity, Sonic Boom, Mass Effect Andromeda, Fallout 76, Final Fantasy XIV, Battlefield 2042, Anthem, Rainbow Six Siege. Yes, I could continue the list, but I won't, because many of those are making a really great comeback. Cyberpunk, Rainbow Six Siege, and even Battlefield 2042 are back on the Steam charts. And that's proof that even rocky launches can turn around with time and effort. And then we have success stories from the get-go. Games like Valheim, Subnautica, Factorio, The Long Dark, Vampire Survivors, and Hades all reflect their devs' dedication and feedback from their communities. And a job done par excellence, Baldur's Gate 3. After 6 years in development and 3 years in early access, Baldur's Gate 3 on release day was far from being an unfinished game. That prime example restored the standards on how to use early access in continuous development. It underscores what some releases like Cyberpunk initially missed, the essence of transparent communication and collaborative evolution with fans. So, I have so much more to say, but maybe for another video. So with all the doom and gloom, I am pretty optimistic about gaming's future. The gaming world is evolving and transforming constantly with highs and lows. And it's a ride. We moved from arcades, boxed revenue and digital distribution models to a mix of free-to-play and live service games. And it won't stop there. Yeah, there will always be some companies pushing questionable monetary strategies, but others will know how to strike a balance between healthy monetization and positive player experience. And the beauty is, the power is in our hands anyways. We can always tell studios what we want with our wallets and play what we love. So the story of gaming is far from dead or dying or destroying itself. It's merely turning a new page for the better.